There is one question you can ask yourself each morning that will quietly change everything. Most people never ask it. The question takes less than 10 seconds to speak, yet it reveals the hidden architecture of your entire personality. Carl Jung believed that every adult is secretly governed by one dominant pattern, a pattern they did not choose. This pattern decides who you love, what you fear, why you keep making the same kind of decisions year after year. He called these patterns archetypes, and one of them sits at the center of your psyche right now, running the show. Most people live their entire lives without ever meeting this inner ruler. They feel its influence, but never see its face. They wake up. They follow its instructions. They call those instructions their personality. They never question the source. But there is one warning question that interrupts this trance. One question that exposes the archetype quietly stirring your life. Before you hear it, you need to understand why almost no adult ever asks themselves this question. The avoidance is not random. There's a reason your psyche protects you from looking too closely at what is driving you. That reason is the entire video. Picture your morning, your eyes open. Before any thought arrives, something has already decided how you will move through the day. A mood arrives, a tension, a subtle urgency or heaviness. That feeling is not random. It is your archetype speaking first. Most people obey this feeling without examining it. They call it personality. Jung would call it possession by an unconscious pattern. You are not aware of choosing it, yet it shapes every conversation, every reaction, every quiet decision you make before breakfast. This is why two people in identical lives can feel completely different at sunrise. One feels burdened. One feels alive. The difference is not circumstance. The difference is which archetype woke up first inside them and which one they obeyed. Jung studied this carefully across thousands of patients. He noticed something strange about morning states and inner identity. The first feeling of the day was almost never personal. It was archetypal, a pattern far older than the individual carrying it. He realized that if a person could simply ask the right question at dawn, the entire unconscious would briefly become visible. This is a question. Stay with me. Most people will hear it and dismiss it because it sounds too simple. The question is this: who is awake inside me right now, and what does this version of me want today? Read it again slowly. Who is awake inside me right now, and what does this version of me want today? It sounds small, but Jung knew that the unconscious only answers questions that treat it as a separate intelligence. Most people ask themselves what they need to do today. That question speaks to the surface mind, the to-do list mind. But the archetype lives beneath that mind. It will not respond to logistics. It only responds to recognition. When you ask who is awake inside me, you stop performing identity. You start listening for it instead. And what answers back is not your name. It is a flavor, a texture, a character that has been there all along. One morning, it might feel like a protector wanting to defend something. Another morning, it might feel like a builder wanting to create. One morning, it might feel like a wounded child wanting to hide. Another morning, it might feel like a sage wanting solitude. These are not moods. These are archetypes surfacing. Each one carries a different agenda for your entire day. Jung described 12 common archetypes that rotate through the human psyche, but one of them is dominant in you. The hero wants to overcome. The sage wants to understand. The caregiver wants to tend to others before the self. The rebel wants to break what feels false. The lover wants connection and beauty. The creator wants to bring something new. The innocent wants safety and goodness. The explorer wants freedom and new horizons. The magician wants transformation. The ruler wants order and responsibility. The jester wants lightness and truth-telling. The everyman wants belonging and ordinary peace. One of these is louder in you than the others. It has been loud your whole life. You may have never named it. When you ask the morning question honestly, the dominant archetype answers first, before doubt, before social conditioning, before fear. Stay with me. This next part will explain something about yourself you have never been able to articulate clearly. The reason most people cannot identify their dominant archetype is because they confuse it with their persona, their public mask. The persona is the version of you crafted to be acceptable. The archetype is the version of you that exists before acceptance. A person with a caregiver persona might actually have a rebel archetype underneath, exhausted from years of pretending to be nurturing. A person with a hero persona might actually have a sage archetype underneath, tired of performing strength when they crave understanding. The morning question cuts through the persona because the persona is not yet fully assembled at dawn. It needs time to dress. In those first minutes after waking, the archetype is exposed. The mask is still hanging on the chair. The real ruler speaks. This is why the question must be asked early, before coffee, before the phone, before the first conversation, before the day begins. If you wait, the persona arrives, it will answer the question instead, and it will give you a polished, useful, completely false reply. Picture an outline figure sitting on the edge of a bed. Behind them, a shadow stretches longer than their body. That shadow is the archetype, waking up. Now picture the figure, standing, putting on a mask from the dresser. The shadow shrinks. The mask speaks for the rest of the day. The morning question is the moment before the mask. That is its power. That is why Jung treated dawn as sacred psychological territory. Comment one word below, just one. The archetype name that feels closest to the version of you that wakes up first. Hero, sage, caregiver, rebel, lover, creator, innocent, explorer, magician, ruler, jester, everyman. Drop one. You will be surprised which word arrives before you have time to edit it. That word is not random. That word is data. Now back to the work. Once you have asked the question and listened, the second movement begins. Most people stop too early. It is not enough to identify the archetype. You must then ask what this version of you actually wants today. Not what it should want, not what would be productive, not what would impress others. What does it want, honestly? The sage might want 1 hour of silence before any human contact. The hero might want a challenge worthy of its energy. The caregiver might want to be cared for, just once, before tending to anyone else. The rebel might want to cancel an obligation that feels false. When you give the dominant archetype even one honest gesture each day, the entire psyche begins to settle. The war ends. This is what Jung called individuation, the lifelong process of recognizing the parts of yourself and giving each one a place at the table. Most people fight their dominant archetype because it does not match the life they have built. They medicate it, they distract it, they shame it. But the archetype does not leave. It only goes underground. And from underground, it sabotages everything you try to build on top of it. A rebel forced to live as a caregiver will eventually burn the house down. A sage forced to perform as a hero will quietly collapse. The morning question prevents this slow collapse. It gives the archetype a voice before it has to scream through symptoms. Picture an outline figure standing in a circle of 12 smaller figures, each representing an archetype. One of them glows brighter than the others. That glowing figure is your dominant pattern. The morning question is how you turn toward it instead of away. Here is the practice. For the next 7 mornings, before you touch your phone, sit at the edge of the bed for 2 minutes. Ask the question out loud or in your mind. Who is awake inside me right now? And what does this version of me want today? Then write down 2 things. The archetype that arrived, and one small honest gesture you can offer it before noon. Not a life change, not a grand commitment. One small gesture, a walk, a boundary, a creation, a silence, a truth told. After 7 days, look at your list. You will see a pattern. The same archetype will have arrived most mornings. That is your dominant one. Now you know the ruler of your inner kingdom, not from a quiz, not from a label. From your own honest morning data. What changes when you know this? Almost everything. Decisions become lighter. Relationships clarify. Energy stops leaking into the wrong roles. You stop trying to be the archetype the world rewarded you for performing. You start building a life the real archetype can inhabit. This does not mean abandoning responsibilities. It means stopping the inner war between who you are and who you pretend to be. There will be resistance. The persona has been in charge for decades. It will not surrender its throne after one quiet morning. You might find that your dominant archetype contradicts your job, your relationship, your self-image. This is normal. This is the work. Jung wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is becoming who you truly are. The morning question is the first sentence of that becoming. You do not need to change anything yet. You only need to listen. Identification comes before integration. Recognition comes before transformation. Picture an outline figure standing tall with 11 smaller figures arranged peacefully around them. None of them are fighting. All of them are seen. That is the integrated psyche. That is what becomes possible when you stop ignoring the version of you that wakes up first. So tomorrow morning, before the world reaches for you, reach for yourself. Ask the question. Listen for the answer. Write it down. Do this for 7 mornings. Then do it for 70. The archetype that has been running your life in silence will finally have a name. And once it has a name, it can become an ally instead of a hidden ruler. That is the shift Jung dedicated his life to mapping. You came into this life carrying a dominant pattern. You did not choose it, but you can choose to know it. The unexamined archetype runs your life. The examined archetype walks beside you. That is the entire difference. So here is the question one more time. Who is awake inside you right now? And what does this version of you want today? If this video helped you meet a part of yourself you have been ignoring, subscribe to the Archetype Code. The work continues here. What you resist persists. What you face transforms. What you integrate becomes power. This is the Jungian way.